All right. Welcome to No Better Time. I'm Phil Salter, and I'm here with DefiFry and Cryptopher Robin. Did I say it right?
Yep.
All
Yes.
right. And we were just kind of talking about who you are, and I was like, let's just get recording, right? So, introduce yourself if you don't mind. That might be the easiest way.
Fry, do you want to start off or do you want me to?
I'll go ahead and start, I suppose. DefiFri, recently, since about August, just taken an interest in the world of DeFi or decentralized finance. And I've had a background in marketing for the past 10 years, but after the pandemic and everything, which of course we're still deep in the middle of, um, realized that I was really interested in trying something new, and what I was doing before wasn't working the same. I was trying to basically build a business around regenerative medicine and regenerative therapy and doing a marketing for that. And basically, it just got killed post pandemic. So
Mm.
it was just like, do I want to keep going for that, or do I want to try something new and actually go for something I'm passionate about? As a lot of other people had a lot of time on their hands, not going to work, just sitting back, what do I really want to start looking into? And my interest ended up being, what's going on with crypto. And I started watching this token called Yearn Finance Wi-Fi, and I was like, "What is this token? It's like higher than Bitcoin." At one
Hmm.
point. Um, and looking into it, it turned out that it was part of a decentralized finance protocol. And just from learning about that project, I ended up finding myself knee deep in marketing for and working with decentralized finance protocols. That's
Wow.
pretty much my intro.
So that's like your job is marketing and doing this, it sounds like, and being involved in cryptocurrency and marketing specific cryptocurrencies. I'm terrible with the terminologies, to be honest with you. Is
Yes,
that is
cryptos and more specifically DeFi protocols and what they can do, which is essentially replicating things you'd find in traditional finance. It could be lending
mm,
and borrowing, trading with leverage. All kinds of different things are being recreated more efficiently with DeFi.
mm-hmm,
And that's basically what brought me to it, is just seeing how much more efficient it is in our current financial system here in America, how much more sense it makes, the roles that it plays by, and how much more fair it is than a bunch
mm.
of old men sitting in a room deciding what the dollar's worth or how the inflation's going to be, so on and so forth. Uh, Frankly, I just trust computers to do that better, and that's what gives me
Mm.
the interest in it.
Interesting. And what was DeFi? That stood for what again?
Decentralized finance.
Decentralized. Okay, very good. Um, Now it's funny because I was telling you guys earlier I'm a software engineer, but I'm surrounded by all these software engineers who's really into and understand crypto, and I've just never taken the time to like dig into it. And I thought it was really exciting to like talk with you guys to as someone who's essentially like learning with whoever might be listening, right, about what this is all about. So I'm an anomaly. I also don't even. I'm not even a gamer, right? So it's like I'm different than a lot of people that I work with now. And then you have Cryptopher Robin.
Yep.
Like what's so what? How does what's your kind of background? And then I'm curious how you guys kind of got connected to each other. I don't know if it goes way back or if it's a newer thing.
It does go pretty far back, actually. So, my history is business management and marketing. I am still I'm doing the crypto stuff and the DeFi stuff. I'd say about like 75% in at this point. I still have all of my regular clients that help out with normal funds and stuff like that, but basically, I had heard about Bitcoin back in early 2012, right before I was going to buy my house, and decided, I'm not going to do it. And then,
Mm.
yeah, I definitely regret that one. Sat on the sidelines for 5 more years after that, kind of just wishing I had gotten in, but never doing it. And then I got in like mid 2017, just in time to get up to a decent little earning. And then the crash of 2018 at the very, very start happened. And that pretty much put a halt to the market for quite a while. And it went out of fashion for, again, another 2 years or so. But during that time is when the entire DeFi system was actually starting to be built up, and I
Oh.
had stopped paying attention to it for a little while. And then once Fry had gotten back into it, He kept like encouraging me to get into it, and so back in January of 2021 is when I started jumping back in more on a full-time basis. And at first, it was just kind of starting to experiment with everything because there's a lot of weird, strange, confusing things that go into this. And the more you
Yeah.
do it, it's like it's second nature, but it's so weird at first. It's extremely confusing. And a lot of it, it's like, being on a skateboard and trying to drop in, it's like really counterintuitive to lean in forward. And that's
Yeah.
gonna like make sure you don't fall on your face. So it's kind of like that with crypto and especially DeFi. But
Wow,
yeah,
that's a really interesting analogy. I love that because it's like, yeah. So you're saying, because I haven't followed it, it's something you hear about, and it seems like there was a time when it was just like a joke, right? And now it's like people are taking it seriously. But there was a big crash, or it really dropped in like 2018. You said.
yeah, very early 2018, and there's always there was a pretty big crash. What, like 5 days ago now? Fry, does that sound about right?
Yeah, and I mean the markets will do what they do, and I thought
Hmm.
Vitalik had something kind of interesting he said about it. He's the Ethereum founder, Vitalik Buterin. I might be butchering his name, but he had something really interesting he said about the markets. He said that the markets will, basically that they'll do what they'll do if the technology isn't there yet. And when you look back at 2018, I think the problem was there was all these speculators coming in. They didn't have a clue what they were investing in, right? Just, oh, it's Bitcoin, it's whatever, and it's going to be the new thing, right? And so, of course, once they earned a certain amount of profit, they're going to just dump it because what do you do with it at that point? Flash forward
Hmm.
to today, DeFi is the reason that people are staying in. It's the fact that you could literally take your Bitcoin, right? And let's say you want to borrow $20,000 against it, but you don't want to sell any of your Bitcoin because you think it'll continue to go up. You have maybe 50 grand in Bitcoin. You could stake it on Compound and borrow USDC coin against it to pay yourself a loan, and you could take a loan out and buy a car with it. And you could do that with Bitcoin and USDC using Compound. I mean, that's fascinating, and you get a better interest rate on it than you would get working with a bank. And that's just one thing that you can do. Meanwhile, your Bitcoin continues to accrue value, and later on you can pay off that loan and you'll have way more money and value in Bitcoin. These are
So
these are things that you used to not be able to do.
all right. If I can follow what I think you're saying, and no, you're very like articulate. I'm not saying you're not. I'm just like me, like absorbing this, right? Um, you're saying that like you can leverage the Bitcoin you have and to get actual US dollars to like buy something, but you're saying you're giving a certain worth of it, but you're saying you could still let it grow and it could.
Yes,
That's
it's
what I'm
like
not.
leveraging. You can use it almost for leverage trading too. I mean, what you're doing is you're staking it in a protocol like a bank. That's the whole idea of DeFi. It's
Uh huh.
decentralized, so there's
Uh
no
huh.
central authority. It's like a bank with no operators. You go in, it's an empty bank. It's just a machine basically. And it's scary working with that in the first place because it doesn't have the same interface as what you'd expect from a checking account. But
Mm-hmm.
what's great is you have protocols now that are coming out like Zapper, which do give you that checking account feeling. I can look at a single screen, right? And the user experience for me is it looks like a checking account. I can see how much money I have in Uniswap if I have money staked there. I can see how much money I have in Compound. I can see how much money I have in any of these one protocols that I'm using for any purpose, right? So let's say I have 50 grand that I've put into Compound. So that means that I've sent my Bitcoin into a smart contract, basically. What I can do now with the Compound protocol is I have $50,000 in collateral. I could maybe borrow $20,000 in a different token, USDC. I'll have an interest rate that I owe back against that, of course, but I can now use that USDC in real life to do whatever I want. I can't get my Bitcoin back though until I pay off the loan. That's of course, the rub about it, but that's how it works.
But is it like, because a Bitcoin is like a unique, right? Like it's obviously people have mined this Bitcoin. It's you saying this is a unique Bitcoin that I own. You're giving it to them for a certain value at the time. You pay
Hmm.
back that value you gave it to them for, but at the meantime, that Bitcoin could have been raising in value, right? Once you buy it back.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Correct.
So you're paying
because you
the
have
interest.
one
That's kind of what
Bitcoin.
you're. That's the cost. You're paying them interest for this loan, right? On your Bitcoin's like value, I guess, if I'm saying that right. And it could be like blowing up and say, okay, let me pay back the $50,000, but what I just got back for $50,000 could be worth $200,000 at this point, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Basically, you have one Bitcoin that's in there, and that one Bitcoin could be worth 50,000. When you pay off
Hmm.
your loan, you still have one Bitcoin, but one
Yeah.
Bitcoin might be worth 100,000. And instead of
Yeah.
having to sell, at that time, what your 20,000 of Bitcoin would be, just a better way to leverage your Bitcoin for real value. And it's once you know how to do it, like I said, you can use it to get an auto loan. You could use
Hmm.
it to get a mortgage theoretically. And I'm sure in the near future, they will find ways to make it even more direct than that, and ways that
Hmm.
it'll finally be recognized as the same as a financial instrument like a loan.
It's
Yeah,
really cool. Thank you. I've never had it like explained to me that well, so I appreciate that.
kind of
Sure.
think about it kind of the same way. Like you could pull like money out of your house that's
I,
mortgaged.
I've done that. Well, I have. It's funny because, well, not to cut you off, but I will. um, I actually got this HELOC all in place because I was thinking about maybe investing in like a rental property, and I decided, nah, I'm not going to do it. But I have this HELOC sitting there that I could potentially use if I found the reason. I don't know if I will, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So I understand that concept. You could say, hey, my house is theoretically worth this much, and so I can a certain percentage that I can get in the loan, right? That's kind of what you're getting at. It's very
Exactly.
similar. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like I mean
Yeah,
during.
like one.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, one example of what you could do if you wanted to do the ultra degen thing, which isn't something I would do, but if you just wanted to just go for it, right? Take all the risks possible. You could say, like, oh, right now I know I have $30,000 of equity in my house, right?
Hmm.
You could take that $30,000 out. You could invest it in Ethereum, right? Ethereum could go up to double that, maybe 6 months, a year from now, who knows, right? But then you stake that money, borrow the amount to pay back the loan, and yet you now have $60,000, well, $30,000 less the debt and collateral. There's all these different ways you can do
Oh, that's
it
interesting.
and
You
make
could even
money.
like use different avenues. Like, so you're saying, let's say it's raised a certain value. So, like, hey, if I can get a hold of like $30,000 anyway to get this Bitcoin back, it's a no brainer because it's worth whatever amount, right? Is that
You could
so?
buy the
Like,
dip with it.
yeah, interesting. Okay. Well, what were you saying? For I mean, sorry, Cryptopher,
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Cryptopher. I feel bad now. I was trying to be funny, like, oh, I'll interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so all I was saying was, it's kind of like if I was to borrow money against my house,
Hmm.
during just in the last like when I checked like a week ago, my house price had gone up almost $30,000. So it's like if I took a loan out, I'd still own my house, but I could
Hmm.
take that and invest it, and then in the meantime, I pay back that loan, and by the time I do, my house has increased $100,000 in value. So it's similar like with different DeFi
Hmm.
coin tokens and things like that.
That's a really good comparison that, like, at least for me, like, feels like a tangible thing to
Yeah,
connect it to.
I try to do that as much as possible with people who don't understand like crypto and DeFi because I know when Fry was trying to talk to me about it, I was just like, what? I'm like, what are you talking about?
So, like,
Yeah,
what
you
is
can
it? Oh,
do
go ahead. Sorry.
anything. Like you can even do leverage trading with it. I won't go too into the weeds about that. I was just gonna say, like, that's only one particular use case, though, right? I mean, people are doing pretty much everything you've
Yeah.
seen with stocks or other types of trading. They're doing with DeFi now.
Yeah. It sounds like it's being realized that this. Well, what is this? It's just a concept. It's people are accepting it. Just like there used to be a lot of different types of currency, right, in the United States, or in particular like different states or different towns, and then eventually that something became more centralized, I guess, as you'd call it, right? And it's like that became accepted as this is like has value, and as this is it has accepted value, then and it's kind of spreading pretty rapidly, right? This acceptance is kind of blowing up, as far as I can tell.
It is, and that brings up a good point too. It'd probably be a good idea to talk about the difference between something like Bitcoin and the difference between something like Ethereum, because
Oh
that kind
yeah,
of delves into the difference between coins
Oh
and
yeah.
tokens. But
that's a good
basically,
point.
the way that I like to describe the difference is Bitcoin is a store of value. It doesn't have a huge amount of use case right now, and that's why, I mean, there's more coming up more frequently, but as of right now, the best way to consider Bitcoin is like a digital store of value, like gold. It's like digital gold. So just the same way where you couldn't take a gold bar into the supermarket and
Hmm.
try and, pay for your groceries with it, everyone realizes and understands it has value, but there's not a good mechanism of exchange in the general community.
It's like in more of a raw form, is what kind of what you're saying.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
But like when you get to something like Ethereum, the way I like to describe Ethereum is each blockchain. Ethereum is a blockchain. There's other ones that are like coming up, like Solana, Binance Smart Chain. These are all specific blockchains, and on these blockchains, people are building other applications. So a lot of the stuff that Fry was just listing off previously, those are applications that are actually built on the Ethereum network. And when I'm talking about Ethereum and the other blockchains, I kind of like to think of them as like a country. So right now, when it comes to it, Ethereum is like the United States of the crypto world. All of the biggest, hugest, most powerful protocols are being built on the Ethereum network, kind of the same way that Amazon is built in the United States or Walmart was built in the United States.
Hmm.
The same thing is happening with Ethereum. Basically, all these projects are being built within inside that ecosystem. And then the same thing is also happening with the up and comers like Solana and Binance Smart Chain, which is now the essentially the number two spot when it comes to blockchains.
Yeah, a
So it's
big
kind of like
reason
it's a
these other,
framework in a way, is what you're saying, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's a
Okay.
yes,
and then like the currency itself, just like we use the United States dollar in this country, when you are operating in the Ethereum country, you're going to be using ETH or Ether.
Okay. I'm curious when you say blockchain, can you kind of just like, is there a way to quickly kind of explain what that means?
Do you want to take that, Fry?
yeah. So I think it's kind of easier to kind of think of them like networks and the way the different ones operate. So for me, like the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum is Bitcoin is on the old proof of work system. So basically, what that means is every time a transaction happens, it'll compute whether it's valid and whether it needs to be added to the blockchain based on the amount of work that's been done on it. So you can imagine the more transactions that are being added to this public ledger that makes up Bitcoin, right? The more inefficient it's going to become in terms of energy use because the blockchain, the ledger is getting longer and longer, and it takes more and more work to generate more Bitcoin on the blockchain.
Mm,
But that's
okay.
why you have the argument like Elon Musk recently said, oh, we're not taking Bitcoin for Tesla anymore. It's not energy efficient. Even though I think Musk is blowing a lot of hot air just to move his own agenda, I think. But still, that is a valid thing that he's recently brought up. And
Hmm.
really, the smart resolution to that is Ethereum, which is actually moving to a proof of stake. So similar to Bitcoin, Ethereum had the old proof of work system, but what's happening with with Ethereum 2.0 is the move to proof of stake. Now, the best way I can explain proof of stake is rather than more and more transactions being added in this proof of work old system, it's basically there's a set of validators, right? So imagine 100 people are staking their Ethereum in a smart contract, right? That staking Ethereum is being used to validate transactions on the network. And because it's a smaller subset rather than, all the transactions that have ever been done in the history of time, it's less energy consumption. Doesn't consume as much energy. It's more efficient. So that's
Mm.
basically why these other cryptos are coming out. They have different use cases. Maybe they are governance tokens, which you could kind of think of like stock almost options for a company. They have all these different use cases, but essentially they're built on the same kind of technology, of blockchain technology, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, and
It's about the best I can speak to it.
the governance tokens that Fry just mentioned, that's a big part of DeFi and a big part of basically what drives a lot of the value and profit potential. So basically, what the governance tokens are, depending on the protocol, it's like giving you actual voting power, depending on how much of them you control, and depending on where you're staking or earning, you'll earn additional tokens usually on top of like the interest rate that you're being paid. And then with that, you actually have the voting power. Because this is a decentralized thing, this is about basically taking the power away from large scale institutions like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, you know, the large scale stock trading and things like that. And it's about putting that power back in the hands of the people. So basically, any good protocol, which a lot of the time is going to be referred to a DAO, which stands for a decentralized autonomous organization, you're going to be using those governance tokens to actually basically decide, how much interest you're going to be paying people, what kind of direction the project is going to be going in the future. So
Mm-hmm.
there'll be proposals, sometimes from the community, sometimes from the developers, and various things like that. And then those are written up and voted on by the community who owns a stake in the organization.
And of
Okay.
course, every project's different and some are better than others. But what's really unique about the culture that's surrounding this type of decentralized living, breathing thing is, these projects will come, right? Like Badger was one example. Right now, SharedStake is another, right? And they'll have an initiative that may centralize around one idea. For SharedStake, it's making ETH 2.0 staking, easier and more profitable for people who want to participate in it. Uh, these organizations will pop up. They'll have a couple lead developers that are behind the project. People start using the project. They gain trust with it over time. They'll have proposals come out to make audits. For instance, to prove that the smart contract is safe, because
Hmm.
people are putting their money into these like their banks, right? So they
Yeah.
want to know that the protocols are safe. So any serious project will usually at some point or another have the community vote on a proposal to do some kind of audit of the code that manages the protocol. That's one way that the community gets involved. Another way is the community members who have previous experience in banking and finance or whatever. They will emerge and help decide governance actions, right? They'll say, I wrote this proposal, they'll write it all professionally like a finance major would, we want to do emissions this way and this pool for this reason, and they'll spell out all that stuff. And everyone it's just all these roles come into play of like a marketing manager, of an operations person, of a developer, of someone in support. These roles kind of spontaneously come from nowhere. People are just participating in the community and becoming a part of it, so it truly does belong to them. um, it's bizarre watching it happen, and it's definitely uncomfortable at times because it's a very new thing, but it's amazing to watch it happen because people are incentivized in a very different way than they would be from traditional business.
Yeah. If I'm following, like, these communities you're talking about, kind of like looking at it like it's a bank, right? So like if Ethereum, right, is the currency you're working with, this is
Hmm.
like a way to access, purchase, and invest in it is going through one of these communities. Is that correct?
Correct. And they have
Okay.
different value that's provided. For instance, they might have a pool that facilitates trades between Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? Like Uniswap's a
Oh,
really good
okay.
protocol. Yeah,
Just
like
like
Uniswap.
a bank will let you, like, I need some yen. Let me trade this out, right?
Exactly.
Right.
It's working
People
with a
need to
currency,
provide.
but there's different banks, right? Okay.
Yes, just like a bank. How do you think they're able to facilitate those trades when you wire money or do transfers? It's based on the liquidity that they have within the bank. It's very
Hmm.
similar to how these protocols work. It's just
Okay.
there's not a bunch of greedy bankers putting their hands all over it. That's the main difference. It's these people who are geniuses in code development. But don't get me wrong, you have to do your own research. You have to dive into every project. You have to know what you're looking for sure, to make sure you don't just send your money to someone who's going to run off with it. But if you know what to look for, I mean, this is something me and Robin do 24/7 basically
Mm.
now. It's one of the most exciting. It is, in my opinion, the biggest opportunity that's happening right now in America, at least.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's like, even if, like you said, do your research and what you're dealing with, because even, let's say they even have good intentions, you want it to be based on solid everything, right? development and
Yeah,
concepts
that
and,
the
and management, right? Like it's even if someone if you're with a community that doesn't know what they're doing, then like it can hurt you. It sounds like.
Correct. There has to be really real utility to the project and also the right team members to make it happen. And I've talked a lot about Compound, but probably the best protocol to mention that's made so many things easier is Uniswap. It used to be really difficult to try to buy Bitcoin, and it used to be even harder to try to trade it. But
Hmm.
now you can easily swap between Ethereum, Bitcoin, and all these other tokens using the Uniswap protocol. It's able to do that because of those liquidity pools I was talking to you about before. Those
Yeah.
same liquidity pools that can be used for leverage trading, for borrowing, lending, whatever you want, could be you just going to a website and saying, okay, I bought some Ethereum on Coinbase. I've sent that Ethereum to my private wallet. Now, without me going back to Coinbase, without the US government knowing about it, without everybody having to see, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on Uniswap. I'm going to take from my private wallet and I'm going to trade this Ethereum for USDC, for Bitcoin, for whatever I want, or maybe I want to invest in a DeFi protocol. And all of this is tracked through, your private wallet and your contributions to that blockchain.
When you're saying U.S., you're referring to like like dollar bills, right? U.S. dollars. When you say that, correct? That's how I'm understanding it. Like trading it
Uh,
for U.S. currency.
USDC. Well, they have a token that's called USDC, which is a
Okay.
stable coin that's pegged to the US dollar. So if
Okay.
you
I didn't
hold,
know that.
yeah,
There's
Okay.
there's
yes,
quite a few of them now, actually.
I just
yeah,
assumed you were
and
talking about actual like cash money, but you're saying it essentially is tied to it, but it's still like a digital kind of currency in a way.
yeah, like if you
Okay.
try to swap, like if you're on Coinbase, like for example, and you try to swap between Ethereum and USDC, you're going to pay a huge premium on it because for one, you don't really own the currency while you're on Coinbase. It's basically like you have a ticket for it and you have a registered ticket for that amount of Ethereum on their network that they hold for you. So if you try to trade between tokens, you pay a high fee. But let's say you just say, okay, I've got 5,000 Ethereum from Coinbase. You can send that to a private wallet, which is just basically like an account that you manage. It only has an address tied to it. Nobody knows that it exists. It's purely yours. You created it on MetaMask or some other wallet provider, right? You can send that $5,000 and you can trade it through other tokens and pay a lower fee. And also, every time you trade, it isn't getting reported through the Coinbase app because the Coinbase app is a centralized exchange versus you having your own private wallet, which is private,
Hmm.
and you working through a decentralized exchange like Uniswap that isn't reporting your trades. So
I see.
it's basically a privacy means. And that's like another use case. I mean, we just interviewed somebody last week that was for Secret Network. And what they do is, of course, all this stuff is private. You don't know who I am except by my wallet address, right? You just see that money was sent to this wallet address. If you figure out who I am, then you can figure out, though, how much money I have because you look up my address and you can see exactly what I have because the blockchain is public, right? But they have this organization that's around now called Secret Network that you can actually put your money into some type of protocol with Secret Network and it's private. Now you can do trades on their network, pay less in gas, and it's not reported, it's not visible to anyone else.
Hmm.
This is just another use case from a different protocol that exists. Did I
So
explain that okay, Robin? Do you think you could add any clarity to anything I said, or is that all right?
Basically Secret just they add an extra layer of privacy just because the blockchain itself, even though like Fry was saying, it's a private thing. You only see a wallet address, but the thing is, you can track whenever anything is changing hands. There's actually something that I follow on Twitter that's called Whale Alert, and it basically is hooked up to let everyone know on Twitter whenever people are trading large amounts of cryptocurrency. So
hmm.
you can see when people are like playing with $100 million worth of crypto, transferring it from one place to the other. So it's like if you figure out who owns that, there's not really that much privacy. You could even keep track of specific wallets on a regular basis. So there's the layer of privacy of not really knowing who it belongs to, but at the same time still being able to keep track of their wallet.
Interesting. So there's still a layer of accountability, but there's still this privacy. Like you can tie it to that wallet, but you don't really necessarily you don't know who that actually is. Is that
Yeah,
right?
but then
Okay.
of course, if you were to ever pinpoint who that is, and this is one of the reasons why a lot of people in the DeFi space are anonymous, because you get like some of the developers who, if somebody found out, that they have a large amount of money, they could easily be, somebody could try and like kidnap their family. Somebody could try and like,
Mm,
like there's people who've gotten death threats because, the token price goes up a little bit or goes down a little bit.
wow.
So they
So
want to be anonymous to keep it simpler, basically, you know. So it's tough because when you see some of these projects, they are led by anonymous communities, you know, by anonymous developers, and you think to yourself, well, should I trust a protocol when I don't even know who's managing it? Well, you know, maybe depending on if you read other information about it, but a lot of
Yeah.
these developers are choosing to go that way just because who knows what'll happen with their taxes, who knows what'll happen with the legalities of what we're even doing right now. It could change in a number of years, and people who directly participate in building these protocols, they don't know what's going to happen in the future. So it's just a way of covering themselves, basically.
Yeah, and it's like you said, this is a very exciting space. It's almost like the Wild West in a way, right? Like it's just kind of it's evolving before your eyes. You don't know where it's going to go, but
it is, yeah. And
yeah.
it really, think of it the same way that like we would have looked at the internet 25 years ago, where it's like it's still, even though Bitcoin was created in 2009. So the whole time that I was on the sidelines, I'm always like, well, Bitcoin's $100 now, it's too late. Bitcoin's
Yeah.
150, oh, it's 300, it's way too late now. And it's kind of the same thing. It's like, I came in full time basically in 2021, so I'm like 12 years late. but
Mhm. But you still don't think like you haven't missed the boat, right?
but
Because
like
that's what I was going to say.
if
Like
you look,
it
if you
still
look
makes sense.
yeah, it's like if you look at the internet 12 years into it existing and you say at that point, oh, I'm too late to get involved, how stupid would you look now? you
Yeah,
know
Yeah.
that's an interesting point.
yeah, and it really is like that. This is completely going to change everything, and not just crypto but like blockchain in general. The technology is basically going to revolutionize the entire world just the same way the internet did.
Because that's you bring up an interesting point. I was thinking of is like someone's listening to this and they have never even like considered actually being in big I mean cryptocurrency, or maybe they have but they just feel like, oh, like it's too late or it's just way too expensive or whatever. Like how does someone get started or what should they do, and what's the motivation to do it? Like what's the benefits they'll see, or in your opinion?
Earning
uh,
better interest in a bank is a
Mm.
good starting one.
yeah, and that's a really really easy one. I mean, like the types of interest rates that you can that
Like what
you
are we talking?
like, so
Like
how much
100,
yeah,
300%
What?
APY.
yeah,
Really?
so like here a crappy return in crypto is if you were to take like your USD and just convert it to a stable coin, and then you could earn like 4% on that just sitting there. And like with
Mm.
that alone, that's like I said, the
It's
crappy
like a
stuff.
hundred times what a bank offers.
Exactly.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So right off the bat, you're making like way more than a bank would ever offer you, and you're actually hedging against inflation as well, because you're pulling your money out of the actual money supply where they're going to continuously keep printing more all the time. You're going to keep deflating the value of your dollar if you just let it sit there. I've got money sitting in a safe right now, and every day I'm like, I feel like I should just go grab the shit and toss it into crypto. Of course,
Mm.
it's nice to have some fiat sitting around, but at the same time, like the longer that sits there, especially with how much money they've essentially technically printed during COVID, the supply has been horribly inflated.
Mm. It's like,
So
yeah, it's honestly like losing value sitting there.
exactly. So you're
Uh,
actually
yeah.
you're actually making money in two ways right off the bat just by taking your fiat and swapping it out for a stable coin. And that doesn't even include actually trying to earn anything with a coin that has the potential to be in a speculator market, which would be, basically anything besides a stable coin.
Mm. So you're saying like the most safe option is in itself like a 4% return on just sitting there. is
Yeah,
what you're saying.
that's like a garbage return. That's
Yeah.
absolute crap in this market. On average, like with SharedStake, for instance, right now, if you were to just if you were to get some of their token and just stake that, the interest rate on that is 80% right now.
Hmm. But I mean, obviously, this is a variable thing. It's not like a set thing. It's like investing in the stock market. You can't. There's no guaranteed return, right? But it's like that's where it's
Well,
at.
the
There is,
APYs can vary as
yeah,
other people enter the pools because basically, like, this is one of the reasons governance happens and people need to make ongoing changes to the protocol. They might have emissions that have a certain pool paying at, 40%, but after several millions, billions, whatever goes into it, probably millions, but at some point, the return's going to diminish, right? And it's going to go down to 30, 20, whatever, because there's more people in the pool sucking up those rewards. So, there are things like that to take account of. What I'd say to like anybody trying to get in is first really just find a use case around one of the blue chips, either Bitcoin or Ethereum. In my view, Ethereum has more upside. All the DeFi protocols being built on it, the use cases demonstrated with those. I'm a big Ethereum believer, but invest in one of the blue chips and then get to a protocol like SharedStake that allows you to stake your Ethereum in a contract. Even if you can earn 4, 5, 6, 7% on it, but you can earn definitely more than that with
Mhm.
staking with SharedStake. Like, why not do that versus just having the Ethereum sit in your wallet and gain nothing, or have your cash sitting in your bank earning you nothing?
Yeah.
Ethereum has outperformed Bitcoin this past bull run, and I think it will continue to. So if you can find a good dip to buy in, and I guess that would be, in my opinion, a reasonable starting point for somebody, but not financial advice, of course.
Oh yeah. So I was literally about to say, like, just I like, yeah, we're not financial advisors. At least I'm not. I'm assuming you guys aren't, right?
Yeah, I'm
So
talking
this is
theoretically getting
yeah,
started an
not
easy way.
officially anyway.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So this is all just theoretical stuff, but
Yes.
it sounds like you need to get a hold of some Ethereum first before you went to shared stake. And
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay,
and the thing to remember too, when it kind of comes back to what I was talking about having the currency to operate in that country, you know what I was saying? You can't operate on anything that was built on the Ethereum network without having some of the currency to pay your bills, essentially. Just the
Called
same way that,
gas.
like, I just like I couldn't go to the grocery store and have no money to buy my groceries. I'd have to have some of the
yeah.
currency that's used.
I guess I was thinking of as like maybe shared stake. And first of all, I think you guys have a stake in shared stake. Are you guys are that's something you guys also are
Correct.
promoting, correct? So I want to like just make that clear. This is something you
Yes.
guys
Yeah,
have an
absolutely.
invested interest in. Doesn't mean it's not good. It sounds I've actually been following you guys on like Discord, and you have a lot of great information, and you're very open, and there's a lot of communication. It seems like there's a lot of like democracy around it as far as like the people involved and their feedback, correct?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
really try our best, and like I said, that kind of comes back around to keeping this in a decentralized fashion, which all the people from the DAOs, we really try our very best to keep open communication. I always tell everyone in there, I'm like, if you have anything to say, please, send me a message. I'm open to it. Like, I'm here for you guys. We want to hear your voices. We want to know what's important to you so we can shape the project around what everyone wants it to be.
Mhm.
And we
So I
keep it
guess
to the
oh
facts too. Yeah, just the other thing I was going to say to the note about what we do with DeFi expectations, it's very fact based. So I could sit here and I could tell you I'm super excited about Ethereum and what I'm doing or what would make sense to me. But at the end of the day, like, we don't come on with a video about any project, even if we love them, and we're not just like, oh, this is great, this is going to go to 100 tomorrow, like, oh, buy it, buy it, buy it. Like, that's not who we are. We look at a project and we want to intellectually understand what it's contributing to the community. What's the value? Who's behind it? What have they demonstrated in terms of trust in the DeFi space? And I think that gives us an authenticity to our brand. Like, we covered SharedStake before we started working with them, and they were actually our first episode, our very first podcast. We wanted to learn more
mm,
about them. We did our first
ah
episode with them, and then we got hired after the fact. So yeah, of course we're biased. Everybody is, but
yeah,
we tend to
sure.
follow our passions, and we feel like that comes through in our channel, our passion for what we do.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have interviewed people Even just like an artist, like the protest, he did artwork as a protest, and it was
Yes.
an EFT kind of thing he was doing, right? Um,
Yeah, the
is that right?
NFT
NFT. I
protest
said
art.
EFT. I'm sorry, NFT. I was like, that didn't feel right. Um, for
They
a
got
second,
ETFs too. We got ETFs and DeFi too.
no, which is really cool. Um, so I guess my question is this: let's say I'm someone who says, you know what, I want to dip my toes. I have, let's say, $30 a week, that I want to put towards, let's say, getting some Ethereum and potentially using SharedStake, for instance, to really let it grow, right? What would someone like? What would I do?
I
Can you
would
do is
say
that can you do anything? Is that even worth doing?
on
$30 a week.
Ethereum, not so much,
Okay.
because sometimes your transaction fees will be that much.
Oh, okay.
So for you to put some money on a chain and it to be worthwhile, usually you want $1,000 or more at
Yeah,
Okay.
least.
the absolute,
Uh,
like I usually tell
uh,
people, if you don't have at least 1,000, don't even bother trying to come into the Ethereum DeFi space. Now it's gotten a little better recently, but basically the reason that they're creating V2 right now is because of the fact that so many people are using this network that wasn't really meant to scale the way it needed to.
Mm,
ETH
You're trying,
2.0, right?
yeah, you're basically trying to like take a city's sewer system water and put it through a hose. So like there's way too much trying to go through this network at once just because of how much it's grown. And
mhm,
so right now you're going to be paying a huge amount of a premium to do anything. And this was one of the things that was very hard for me when I was getting in is,
mhm,
when you look at something like Venmo or PayPal or, Zelle, those are all free to use or very inexpensive for the most part. And yet when I came in, it was somewhere between like 40 to $60 every time you wanted to move something around.
mm,
Now,
Hmm.
doing that, it doesn't matter if you're moving $30 or $30 million. You're still making the same ledger mark essentially. So that's why I always tell people, I'm like, realistically, even coming in with $1,000, unless you're going to do one thing, like, you're going to buy your Ethereum, you're going to come over to like Uniswap or something like that, trade it for SGT, which is the name of Shared Stakes token, and then stake that. That's still a couple processes right there. You're going to have to do
mhm.
the trade for the swapping, then you're going to have to pay for the staking.
With
So,
the ETH gas.
yeah, and like so every time you do that, you're spending your Ethereum as well.
Yeah.
So
That's
you
This
part
got
of
is
the
cutting into your
reason.
potential growth, right? Like you have
exactly,
to
and you got to
hit
make
cover
sure
that
that like
first.
you got to make sure that like the return that you're looking at, like if you're going to be making an 80% return and you put in $1,000, it'll probably be worth it over time. But a couple weeks ago or a week ago, like when the crash had happened, the gas prices were up to like 400 gwei, which is the measurement of ETH basically,
Okay.
and that basically means that like people were spending probably upwards of $200 or more just to sell their stuff at a huge loss. But
Wow.
everyone was panicking. And there's like
Yeah.
the only reason you're going to be panicking is because you put in more than you can afford to lose
Yeah.
and that you aren't in this for the long term.
Mhm. Yeah,
If
it's like
you're
the stock market, right? Like that's the
yeah,
worst time
yeah,
to sell. You don't sell when it's like, plummeting unless you
yeah,
really
that's
don't have any, unless you completely have lost faith and you think it's only getting worse from
Right.
here. So,
yeah, that's exactly when you should be buying. I mean,
yeah.
the prices dropped so low. I was just like telling everyone, I'm like, right now is that time. If you haven't gotten in yet, the prices are reasonable right now. The gas isn't reasonable, but just to purchase, it was
Mm,
very reasonable. And that turned around within about 2 days. Meanwhile, the prices of some stuff had dropped like 75 or
interesting.
90% during that time, and now they're back up again. Not all the way, this is a very recent thing. But if you're in this for the long term, the trajectory is upward. And the same way that, investing in companies like that do online sales when that was first a thing, the trajectory is upward no matter how many times like things fluctuate. The trajectory is going up, and this is
Mm,
it's a world changing technology. So doing the research and investing in the right products, it's gonna work out well.
Yeah.
because things are only growing, things are only getting better. And the cool thing about DeFi as well, most of the time, everyone is working together. It'd be like if if Bank of America and Wells Fargo and US Bank were all collectively working together to make things better for everyone who uses their product.
Not just for themselves, right? But for
Exactly. Yeah. So
yeah.
it's like if there's
Imagine that.
yeah,
Yeah.
if there's a
Imagine all the
problem,
people.
it's like if there's a problem that's noticed, or two things don't operate well together, the development teams will usually come together and be like, okay, we should do this so we can make these operate well together. So it's a very new space, and you'll see a lot of stuff that like is counterintuitive a lot of the time, like I was saying earlier.
Hmm.
But everyone's working together collectively to make it better.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it sounds like, first of all, you really need like a chunk of cash if you really want to like do this right and make it uh something that makes sense, like at least $1,000. It's not something like, for me, I've been doing this thing where I just put, and I want to know, maybe I'm curious what you guys think about this. I use Robinhood to buy stocks. Maybe you think that's insane. I have some people I work with who are really on what's the word I'm looking for, on a principle level, like are against Robinhood because of what happened with GameStop and them not letting people either buy or sell. I can't remember, but um, I use that. And I put $30 in there a week just to kind of like learn and kind of see what I can do with it.
Yeah.
That's why I brought up the $30 mark, because it's like it's not that much, right? But it's still something that you can kind of play with and see that what kind of growth you get. I'm
Yeah.
really playing with the percentages because I figure $1 in a stock, whatever percentage I get that, if I was $1 million, like, hey, it's still the same. It's still the same risk. I may be like you have more at stake, but you know what I mean. But
Because of fees, even on Coinbase, I think you'd probably want to do your buys bigger than $30
yeah,
realistically. Like
that's what
even
it
if you
sounds
did
like.
like yeah, but even if it was like $100 you did one monthly or every couple months or something, that would probably make sense. But
Okay.
like actual investment in DeFi, which is like basically requiring gas and locking your crypto into contracts, that's really not possible on the Ethereum blockchain with a small budget now. But um, it is getting better. Like there is, of course, the coming of ETH 2.0, which is going to make things a lot faster, or supposed to. But there's also other chains as well. I know Solana is one that a lot of NFT projects are choosing just because the energy consumption is it's a lot more efficient and less expensive too for them to do the drop because of that efficiency. So, but there's lots of like Robin was saying, if there's a need, there's people coming to fill the void. But the space is so positive. I mean, one of the other things, and we haven't even talked about this yet, that benefits uh, participating in DeFi over traditional corporations, I guess, the traditional environment you might be used to in working corporate America, is people share everything. It's not like we have trade secrets.
Mm-hmm.
We have our code is available. It's on a GitHub. You can go look at it, right, and pick through it. You can actually, and in fact, the code is open to the communities oftentimes because it comes from an anonymous developer, and they'll say, "Judge me by the quality of my code." Not who I am,
Yeah.
but like pick
Mm-hmm.
apart my code. And there are people who have propped up just to do code audits. You know what I mean? And they'll do them for free sometimes. It's crazy. Like just
Hmm.
the mentality of the people participating in this. It's very much like an idea of, like, if you're familiar with The Secret, it's very much like a method of a thought of abundance. You know what I mean? Rather
Yes.
than
Yes.
scarcity and competitiveness. It's very different.
I just
Very
I can
positive.
I just recorded something this morning. I kind of sometimes I once a week I like record just some thoughts, like not interviewing someone. And I talked about that concept of abundance and scarcity today. So yeah,
Hmm.
totally. Um,
Real quick, to get back to your question, if somebody did want to invest a small amount, you
mhm.
could still just buy into a token or a coin, like buying some Ethereum or buying some Binance, and then just letting it sit there. You're not going to earn like anything, or depending on the exchange that you did purchase it from, you might earn a small amount. But you could still do that, and then you're not trying to like actually go and spend it. You're not going to be doing anything like crazy, but
Mhm.
you can still, put in a small amount, because over time that will most likely result in some kind of net positivity.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it sounds like I use Robinhood, right? Because it's just the barrier for entry is very low, right? I can
Mm-hmm.
deposit money. I even have access to up to $1,000 a day instantly to then like invest.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like the barrier of entry is higher right now, but it sounds like there's things in place to make that lower as far as and not as expensive as far as transactions potentially is what I'm kind of think I'm getting from this, but also just
Yes, that's
accessibility
the
will
2.0.
yeah. So that's exciting for me to hear. Uh, as far as like a way to kind of get in and that barrier of entry. Not that it's not worth it at the higher level, but it's I think it will more people will get involved, especially in the beginning. I think once you really prove the concept to yourself, you have more faith and confidence, you can really start maybe going more aggressively with the numbers, right?
Yeah,
Well,
and
when you
you know,
when you take money off Coinbase, I was just gonna say like that's a whole different experience too. Like when you're working with a centralized exchange like Coinbase, and even if you finally said I'm gonna pay $1,000 to buy this Ethereum, I mean that's a certain point of belief and faith, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But when you first send your money off the exchange to a private wallet you just set up with MetaMask that doesn't look like a banking account, that didn't ask you who you were when you signed it up, you're not going to feel right about sending that money there the first time. But then
Yes,
you
that
do that.
counterintuitive thing, right?
Yes. And then you lean into it and you do it. And then the next thing you know, you're staking with a protocol and you've sent your Ethereum to a smart contract. It's like, oh, okay, now you're generating a return here. It's something you got to step slowly into, I think, is what everyone
Yeah,
kind of do with it.
that makes sense. I mean, honestly, I'm gonna ask you this. So in Robinhood, I bought like some weeks back, like $100 worth of Dogecoin. What are your thoughts on Dogecoin? You haven't brought that up. I'm curious what you think.
so I
Oh,
guess for me,
That says
here's
enough right there.
here's the weird thing about decentralized finance and crypto. And we're I feel like I'm learning stuff every single day, and I feel like I will be forever. But it's like it's a meme coin, so it
Yeah,
has
yes.
basically no use case. It's a joke. It literally was created as a joke, and yet it has billions of dollars in value locked at this point. So no matter how stupid it was when it came out, am I stupid for thinking that it's completely worthless at this point and brushing it off? And that's the
maybe.
yeah.
You don't know until late.
I would say that it would be ridiculous for me to not take it seriously at this point. And what that proves to me is that this world of decentralized finance is weird and it doesn't make sense a lot of the time. It doesn't make sense that a joke project that's a meme would suddenly be like, in the top 4 or 5 valuations of all of these projects when it has essentially no use case. But
Yeah.
Mm,
I mean,
people have
I
put
think the
faith in it.
problem I think you got a couple issues there. I mean, what bugs me about Dogecoin or whatever is that I think it kind of takes some of the credibility away a little bit, is
yeah,
my
I can see
only
that.
issue, right? Is you have people who want to come in for something serious that's going to really transform like our financial landscape because it needs it. It really does. I'm not afraid to say that. It needs to change. Like it doesn't make sense. And we have Elon Musk goofing around acting like, okay, Tesla's going to accept Bitcoin. Oh, now he's not going to accept Bitcoin because it's not energy efficient enough. And oh, Dogecoin, you know what I'm saying? Like he hasn't done like, come on, really to jump from Bitcoin to Dogecoin. The reasonable jump would be okay. Bitcoin might have some issues with energy consumption, but let's take a look at Ethereum, which is moving to a proof of stake. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? That would have been a serious reason for him to make that change. But just coming and being like, "Oh yeah, Dogecoin, yeah, that's the people's currency." It's just a joke to him, and he's
Yeah,
causing people and financial markets to change and people to lose money and gain money. Like it's a really bizarre level of power for a person to have, and it's problematic. And when it's used to promote something with a dog's face on it, it just pisses me off. That's my
because
personal
yeah,
opinion.
I see what you're saying. It's something you take very seriously, and to see it kind of be made a joke of, whereas like, and I can see that point, and I can also see the other side where it's like, hey, people thought like Bitcoin was just a joke. Obviously, it wasn't really
Mhm.
based on a joke specifically, right? That's the difference, I think. But I see what you're
Right.
saying. Like, this is something you like you really care about and you take seriously, and for this to be kind of, but it did kind of. I thought it was really interesting. Elon Musk goes on to Saturday Night Live, and there was all this talk about how that's really going to make like Dogecoin like go to the moon, break a dollar, whatever, and I'm like, that's insane that like this guy who just like kind of like likes Dogecoin, right? He's like, smart and he has a company, but he's not connected to it other than just kind of like he's just interested in it, right? Is my understanding. And that could potentially affect its price and affect all this stuff. But is that really that different than any other random thing? People hear rumors about companies and then all of a sudden it gets more value or it drops value. It's all based on like feelings. Isn't that just what all this stuff
It's
is anyways?
It is.
I
It's
would
just
say yeah.
it's disappointing when people don't use their influence to actually
Mm.
start a real dialogue. That's my
Yeah.
issue with it. And he has the power to do that. And
Yeah.
he has done so a little bit with Bitcoin. And I just hope he goes more that route than being like, oh, I'm going to support Dogecoin now, because I don't think it's serious to him. I mean, but the issue is like at its core, it still is the right technology. I mean, I'm sure Dogecoin is a fork of the same type of block, basically a copy of some other type of code that's been used in other
Mm.
blockchains. So I mean, it's sound in a way. It could be used as a currency, and it might be more efficient in certain ways than Bitcoin. But was it ever developed with that purpose? Does it have other people building networks on top of it with the use cases that are seen by Ethereum? No. Do I think
Mm.
Musk is too dumb to know that? No. So he's basically taking this
Yeah.
opportunity he has and making a mockery of it. That's my opinion, though. Very much
Or
my
just like a
opinion.
grab for attention, like he wants to be a rock star, and it's just a way to kind of,
Yeah. And he already
you know,
is. So what does he need?
yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah. That's interesting. I just was curious because you guys hadn't brought it up, and I was like, that's, and I kind of figured say something like this. Yeah, but I mean,
yeah, and
honestly, my whole plan was I put $100 into this thing, and literally, I'm not going to buy or sell any more of it for 2 or 3 years, and just see where it's at. It's more of an experiment than anything.
mhm.
You know what I mean? Who knows? But yeah.
Yeah,
So what were you gonna say?
experiment,
Sorry.
experimenting is a big thing here. But what I was going to say is, in relation to Elon Musk, like the reason that the crash happened recently is in kind of relation. There's a couple reasons, but when Elon Musk had announced that Tesla had purchased $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, that began the bull run hardcore of the last couple months. So then a little bit after that, after, because whatever happens with Bitcoin will pretty much drive the rest of the market. If something's going wrong with Bitcoin, basically the rest of the market will probably suffer as well, because it's the granddaddy, and whatever's going on with that, it's going to trickle down. So then when he came back out and announced that Tesla was no longer going to be accepting it, that also dropped the price heavily. And
Mm.
on the same exact day, I believe, Vitalik had been airdropped a couple weeks before, I believe, something called Shiba Inu. I'm not sure if you had heard about that. It's
Mm-mm.
There's a lot of dog coins now because of Doge being popular, and especially on Binance. There's dog coins and meme coins popping up by the hundreds now. Um,
Mm.
so Shiba Inu had been gaining a lot of notoriety, and apparently the creators of that had airdropped half of the value to Vitalik. So they essentially gave him about $8 billion.
Oh,
Then,
this sounds kind of vaguely familiar. Yeah.
yeah, so on the same day that Elon Musk announced that Tesla's no longer going to be doing this,
Mm.
Vitalik pulled out $1 billion worth of liquidity and donated it, which is great. But those are two big, huge things to the market that happen on the exact same day. And I believe it was 2 or 3 days later that China announced that they were going to be cracking down on cryptocurrencies for like the fifth time.
Mm.
And various countries will always make these announcements and crash the market, and then it never really follows through. And then the market recovers because everyone's not in panic mode again. But that's something that happened within about a 3 or 4 day span. So huge
Mm.
announcements like that, and the market fell by like 75%. I mean, like the total value locked in the market was probably like $2.7 trillion or something like that, and easily $1 trillion was lost from the market within like a day and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's crazy. I mean, it's funny because I don't know, it's funny, but it's interesting. It's interesting that what we're looking at here is if enough time
That's some funny
passes.
shit.
What's that?
I said that's some funny shit.
Yeah. No, but I mean, we're talking about if enough time passes, this continues to prove itself as a concept. cryptocurrencies and this like decentralized finances and stuff like that. It's just like the stock market has been around for a certain period of time. Has not been a thing forever, right? It's
Mhm.
what, like early 1900s. I don't even know when this thing started. This is I don't know the history, but it's not like it's been around for even hundreds of years, right? Let alone through mankind.
The New York Stock Exchange probably like late 1800s or early 1900s.
Okay, something like that. Like it's
But
only
I mean,
so old, but
yeah,
you know,
stock ownership is, many hundreds of years old for sure.
sure, okay, I'll give you that. I don't know, but that makes sense. You know what I mean? But I'm saying, like, let's say, for instance, the New York Stock Exchange. That's where we're commonly trading on, correct? Um, that's that's something that people just have, for generally speaking, just say, hey, I have faith in this thing. This has proven itself. There'll be dips, right? There'll be drops. There's like, recessions. And that's the, like you said earlier, like that's the time to buy, especially if you believe in the long term trajectory. Past performance is not proof of any future thing, but you can kind of have a certain amount of faith. And so you're saying when this happened with cryptocurrency, I'm sure a lot of people that would really have bought in really like capitalized on that is my guess.
What's
You
super
know,
Or
interesting is like the philosophy of how people can be as traders. For example, like you could tell somebody about Ethereum for a straight year, right? You could start
uh-huh.
telling them about it when it was $300. Then you could tell them about it was 500, 600, 1,000, and now it's up to like what, $2,600, right? But what they'll say is you'll talk to them when it's at, or they'll see it when it's at 3,000. They'll see it dip down to 26. It'll have a sharp correction, right? They'll be like, oh, yeah, see, that's why I didn't invest in that. See that volatile cryptocurrency. You can't trust that. And it's like, but man, I told you to buy it when it was $300. Like, would you have
Yeah.
lost anything? It's just
Yeah.
how people are. And it's,
It's that
it's
confirmation
counter.
bias for what you believe. You're looking for things to confirm that belief.
Exactly. And it's like, but like you said, Robin was saying, it's counterintuitive sometimes. You see a dip and you do get scared. Am I losing all my money? Well, if you took some profits on a green day when things are up, you might have some more money to put back in on a down day, knowing that it'll go back up from there. It's
Mm.
just, you have to create your own strategy that makes sense, and you have to stick with it against your own feelings sometimes, because sometimes your feelings can be very wrong and can make you do silly things when you're trading.
Yeah, dude, it's we
So,
think we're logical, but honestly, so often daily we're making illogical choices against like facts and information. It's really hard not to get emotions involved, especially when it comes to your money and investing. And you can, like you said, you have a strategy, and that can just go out the window. If you don't
right.
and
if
that's
you haven't really, thought hard and like put forth some discipline behind it.
that's something that,
Absolutely.
as someone who's a little newer to this still, like actually dipping their toes fully in at this point, I'm still learning new things about how I want my, how I want to be as a trader and a buyer and an investor. So, like, for instance, when we're talking about, Ethereum, if it's going to cost me $60 to try and sell, $300 worth of Bitcoin so I can take a $20 profit,
Hmm.
it's not worth it.
Yeah, that's a lot of work for very little
Yeah,
payoff.
and so like it's worth it to do the day trading type stuff if you're playing with huge amounts of money, because if the price fluctuates by a couple dollars but you own, $20 million worth, well, you can
Hmm.
flip that real quick and then, make a couple grand very easily, or a couple hundred grand depending on like how big the dip is. But with someone who has like a small amount in it, it really is only worth playing the speculator market and just hoping that it kind of goes up.
Hmm.
In the same way, like I have some different things that I've bought in where I'm like, okay, I've got enough of it where now it's like if I was to watch and the price does go up to a high amount where I feel like, it's a psychologically satisfying number. Like, let's say something's been hovering at like 7 cents, but now it hits like 25 cents. To me, that's like a 10 is a psychologically satisfying number. Things with zeros and fives are psychologically satisfying. So you figure if something hits an all-time high with a psychologically satisfying number, there's a good chance it could go up a little more, but there's a good chance, especially when something shoots up 3 or 4 times, there's a good correction probably coming back into that. And you're probably going to find like something a little more stable, maybe around 13, 14 cents or something. But had you sold when it was 25, now you have that to put back in when it dips and buy more. If you
Hmm.
don't ever watch the market like that, then you're never going to have a chance to buy the dip.
Yeah. I think that's the thing I'm realizing. It just takes so much time and energy and knowledge and research and all these things. If you really want to like, whether you're dealing with like, Ethereum or if you're dealing with just like stocks, it's just, it's a lot, and it's not, if you can't really do it right, like you probably should just buy things that you feel like are long term and like kind of look away for a while. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
That
So,
really, and that really is the best way to go for anyone who's not willing to get really deep into this. Because
yeah.
if you're worried about it and you're watching it all the time, and you're also not playing with enough of it,
Mm.
you're gonna be obsessing over like $20
Yeah,
essentially. Like, oh,
exactly.
oh my god, my $300 is worth $280 now. You know?
I mean, that's kind of where I'm at, but I'm getting out of that like more obsessive part of over a very little amount of money and like what it's doing. Because I'm very new to like even like buying individual stocks. In the past, I've like a 401k and that goes into like an index fund. And I have some
Hmm.
stuff I do like in, I don't know if have heard of Betterment, where you can like put money in like index funds and things like that. But I was like, I want to try some of this stock, individual stock stuff. I don't care if some people say it's too risky. I'm gonna just see what I can learn. And
Yeah.
I started with, hey, I'm going to do $100 and just see what I can do with that for 2 months. And if I lose it all, hey, it's $100 little crash course in intro to investing. Of course, that grew within a week to $1,000 I had in there. I'm just like, I didn't, it's like the whole thing of emotions and like, not sticking to your script or your plan. But I
Mm.
was looking at it constantly, watching like what was happening. And it was just like exhausting. At first it was exciting and it got very exhausting,
Yeah.
so it's,
I
it's
know the
interesting.
feeling.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
you got to leverage the value of your time too, especially
Yeah, it's not worth the time
yeah,
at
it's like
that.
especially someone who makes like a decent amount of money. Is it worth like sitting around like watching that your value has increased by $100 that day? It's like
Hmm.
you could have worked for 2 or 3 hours and made more than that.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, it's been a learning process and it's been interesting, and that's the point of my podcast is learning about finances and taking it head on and not being intimidated or afraid by it. So
Good.
very. And honestly, cryptocurrency is something I've just avoided because it's just like, oh, seems like too much. But that's why I was so excited when we got connected through that Facebook group we're in. As a podcasting Facebook group, and you were looking to talk about cryptocurrency. And I was like, dude, that's a lot in line with a lot of things I'm about, learning about financial principles and taking on things that intimidate me. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
if you
think
learn
that
about other
I'll
projects too,
go.
I was just gonna say you could always have us on again, and we'd be happy to do deep dives into like one specific example of crypto or DeFi. So that's
Oh
always
yeah,
a
for sure.
possibility too. If you start
That's
learning and want to learn more, let us know.
awesome. I appreciate that. I mean, is there anything you guys want to plug, like as far as your YouTube and like, I believe your podcast is at this point a YouTube channel, correct?
As of
Yes.
right now, yes, and I'm gonna be working on like it's pretty hard right now. Like I think on my schedule right now, I have about 290 hours of work for the month.
Hmm.
So I'm trying really hard to like leverage my time with
Hmm.
the podcast because it's something that I'm very dedicated to now, but it
Hmm.
also doesn't pay anything. So it's
Well,
like
that makes me feel even better. You took the time to be on this with me, so thank
yeah,
you.
it's I'm really enjoying it. I'm actually like turning one of the rooms in my house into a podcast studio.
That's
So
awesome. That's
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, so I'm really
It's
enjoying it, but it's like really about leveraging your time right now. But at the same time, it's like this is something that we want to do. So I do plan on either getting it onto Anchor or Buzzsprout or something like that soon. We do have 11 episodes as of about an hour ago
mm,
from talking with
Yep.
you. I got the last episode edited and just got that up on YouTube. So I feel like we have a decent little like grouping of shows where we could actually stick something up there. We'll have enough for people to actually go through and check out if they like, if it piques their interest. So I feel like we're kind of at that point now.
hmm.
But for
That's
now, yes,
awesome.
it's only on YouTube right now.
And that's DeFi
Yeah, DeFi.
expectations.
Yes, DeFi Expectations on YouTube. I'm DefyFri on Twitter. And Robin, what's your handle?
Cryptopher Robin, but it's spelled Robn on my handle, just because some other poser used to be Cryptopher Robin and got their account banned, and so I couldn't use the URL.
And it's even
That's
banned, you
funny.
said? um,
Yeah. Apparently they suspended that account for whoever that used to be.
wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy. And then if people want to check out shared stake as well, right, is a way to kind of like leverage their
Shared
Ethereum, correct?
Yes, SharedStake.org. They should be back on Twitter soon, but their handle would be SharedStake on Twitter as well. But yeah, feel free to check out SharedStake.org. There's lots of really good content. And if you want to be a part of governance, go to forum.sharedstake.org.
Awesome. And I'll put these links in the show notes, and I'll also be uploading a video version of this to YouTube on my channel there. And I'll put that in the description as well. You know, your
Perfect.
handles and where they can find you, your podcast on YouTube, as well as, you know, the other things you just mentioned with Shared Stake. You guys are awesome. It's really cool to just kind of expand the network of people and the connections. That's what I love about doing a podcast, is just it's getting me to kind of go outside my comfort zone, learn things, meet people. Everyone is amazing that you meet in this world if you give them enough time to, if you give people time to, you know, to really get to know them and hear what they're about. And you guys are incredibly interesting, and I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I definitely like feel the same way about it too. Like everyone we interview, it's always like such a different experience, and it's, we all learn from each other, which is
Hmm.
cool. Like this is our first time actually
Agreed.
guests on a podcast, so it's
That's
it's
cool.
it's nice to not have to be in control of anything because I'm really excited to not have to go edit this afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I do a pretty minimal editing, so we'll see. It's going to be pretty raw, you know, and it's a question of just kind of being raw, but also being lazy. So,
Yeah,
but honestly, you guys are awesome.
It's
Thanks so
authentic.
much for your time. Yeah, it's
yeah,
authentic, is what it
Awesome.
is. It's raw.
There you go.
Uh, so if anybody wants to, if anyone has questions, I could really see people coming up with questions as they listen to this. You can email me at nobettertime.podcast@gmail.com. If you go to anchor.fm/no better time, you can even leave a voice memo, which I can respond to. And if you have questions for Fry or Robin, you can ask there and I can forward it on to them. And hey, who knows, if there's a good question, good enough, maybe I can get them back on, you know, to answer it directly. You never know.
yeah.
But
Definitely feel like if anyone wants to tweet at us as
yeah,
well,
yeah.
we'll have those handles in the video as well. So feel free to do that. We're pretty open. The good thing about DeFi again is that it's a pretty open community. I mean, this is one of the interesting things about it too. A lot of the people that you would think would not be at arm's length are at arm's length. You
Mm,
know, and when's the last time you were able to talk to the CEO of Bank of America? You can do that in DeFi pretty
wow.
easily. Yeah.
That's amazing. It's
Yeah.
interesting. It's a combination of just like, we kind of like privacy, but also just like openness and like community. It's really cool.
Yeah. It is. It's a very neat experience.
Awesome. Yeah. And so, and honestly, if people, if you, thank you for listening. If anyone is listening, I know there's some, there's a few, and I think please keep doing that. I would love ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe wherever podcasts are available, wherever you listen. And thanks again, guys. You guys have a great night.
Yeah, you too. Thanks again.
You too.
Yeah.